People who work at super fancy hotels, what kind of stuff happens that management doesn't want people to know about? Story 1. We had one of the Baldwins beat up a hooker behind the building once. That was before I worked there, but people still talked about it. We had an entire wing of the hotel infested with bedbugs. They just moved through the walls from one room to the next. We waged a war of attrition that took years, and cost a lot of money, but we never stopped renting the rooms. Sometimes drug addicts have money, or maybe better said, sometimes people with a lot of money have drug addictions, so maybe once a year or so you'd have someone move in, and they'd end up staying for months and you didn't know it was a problem until it was a problem. One day there's suddenly a lot of police cars in the parking lot and it's something we're just not supposed to talk about and pretend never happened. We had one old guy though who was rich, divorced several times over, he just retired in the hotel. He had a room on the ground level right around the corner from the hotel bar. I don't know what he paid for it, but it wasn't cheap, and he furnished his own room. Everyone on staff knew his habits, knew his drink, knew when to leave him alone or when he wanted to chat. The funniest thing was, after he passed, he'd pre-booked his memorial at a totally different hotel. He liked his privacy, I guess. R.I.P. Hal. Story 2. My brother worked in an upscale hotel in Southern California. A morbidly obese guest sat on the toilet in his room, shattered it, got his femoral artery slashed by a chunk of broken toilet, bled to death, and flooded his room when the water line ruptured. My brother found out about it from the maintenance guy who found the body. Management made sure no other guest ever knew, including the guests in the room below the death scene who called for maintenance because water was running down their wall. Story 3. Human trafficking became so bad that the company gave us training on looking out for it. There is a policy in place to knowingly cause you issues and pacify you. Routine elevator maintenance during a busy period because the tech travels around and it is now or 3 weeks from now. The elevator did not have unforeseen issues. Professionals are the worst guests for partying and puking everywhere and pissing in halls and breaking things and fucking in public areas. Lawyers, doctors, teachers. In that order. Whenever they had conventions, extra staff were on the next day for dealing with damage. Edit. I forgot to add overbooking as an example of dicking with people. We assumed not everyone would show on a 100% occupancy night and booked more than we could hold. The rare time we did have everyone show, here's free stuff and a ride to X hotel. We even had friendly agreements with neighboring competition to let each other know when we could take each other's overbookings. Story 4. I worked cooking at an ultra-exclusive resort in Utah. $3K $12K/night. Nothing that exciting happened in my year there. I found a bottle in the tallboy, large fridge, labeled Kristen Bell's breast milk. Do not use. Most celebrities were nice, except for David Beckham. He specifically requested no staff members make eye contact with him. I had put in my 2 weeks, and was really drunk on a day off, and made a post on FB about how Gordon Ramsay was coming and I hoped he wasn't filming Kitchen Nightmares with us. I was fired within 24 hours, lol. I did get to cook fish tacos for him and his family though, and I heard he complimented the dinner kitchen crew directly, partially open kitchen, which is cool. Story 5. I was at a hotel for months for work and I decided to have them come only once every second week because I don't need new towels and shit every day when I'm living there. If I needed something changed I'd just ask. I always had the do not disturb sign on the door for this reason, as well as telling this to the front desk and scheduling a day for them to come. Despite this, I would get very professional letters slid under the door once or twice a week stating they were concerned about me and might have someone pop in to check on me. Obviously worded better, but that was the gist of it. I kinda laughed at first but then realized why they would even think to do that, and then it was kind of sad because you know for sure this hotel had some suicides going on often enough to warrant it, despite my assurances. Anyway, I'd go down to the desk and let them know I'm alive and well. I told them my work schedule and asked if they insisted on checking on me. Those were the best times, as I'd be gone and they wouldn't be bugging me. The rooms had a full kitchen as well, so I was self-sufficient for almost everything. Anyway, eventually I did ask about the routine of checking up, asked one of the cleaners that were there often, and she told me basically what I assumed about suicides. The shit these people have to see. My god, man. I started writing letters every morning, short and concise, just asking them how they were doing and hoped they had a good day, and left a pen and notepad to write back if they chose to. In the end I had a couple pen pals for the few months I was there. Because this was all on works time and the entire trip made money, I ended up asking how the tip thing works and that if I left a tip on my last day, would they get it or would it go to a random person who maybe cleaned my room once. To summarize, there were crews and shifts and assigned floors etc., and if I left it, The appropriate people would be compensated, so I left a couple $100 for them and thanked them for everything they did and for being great pen pals and such. No idea if the people I wanted to got the tip, but someone deserving did, I'm sure, and that's all that matters. Story 6. I used to work in accounts receivable for a couple of luxury hotels that were owned by the same LLC. We would open blocks of rooms for generic sports season about 8 months in advance. Due to high demand, these reservations had to be a 2-day FRI, SAT stay. Payment was made in full, $450 to $800 depending on room type. Refunds were available only if you canceled a month before the arrival date. When I first started in the position, I discovered $63,000 worth of reservations that had been canceled on time but were never refunded. I showed it to my manager, an absolutely incompetent woman who couldn't check in a guest if she needed to. She got back to me after discussing it with one of the owners. I can't remember how exactly she put it, but I was told to just forget the matter and not to mention it to anyone. I got a $500 cash Christmas bonus that year. Story 7. In my experience as manager, if maintenance shows up with the manager to check something in the AC or TV, then an employee accidentally checked in the wrong reservation. Manager gets your name, gets you a free drink at the bar and fixes the mess up. Using the elements, rooms AC and heating go out all the time. If it's a hot summer and the AC doesn't work but we are overbooked, last check-in will get the room. We bank on it being cooler in the night. We know everything about you, especially if we have a reason to. I know that brand new Corvette is rented, I know your schedule, and all your movements through the hotel. If you are good at hotels, then you have a good idea of who, what, when and where most of the time. All hands on deck. Ever noticed a random maintenance guy on one floor and security on the next floor and then a manager checking out a picture on the other floor? I've spread the team out on each floor to deter kids with sports teams. The parents like to get drunk and let their little darlings run free on the hotel. Low-grade porn movies. Yes, the half-drunk girl you walked in with your 5 buddies who just want to see the pool is obvious porn. We know and have cameras. Then everyone gets Pikachu-faced when you're asked to leave. Rappers. I saw you rapping at 3 a.m. walking down Main Street with your buddy filming using an iPhone. You're good, but we know you aren't a guest, so just walking in the hotel isn't going to work. We know it's a nice place, but ask for permission. Same with influencers. Beer is our bartering system. I could fill pools with the amount of beer I've given away. Got a maintenance issue? Go to the bar and have a drink on me. Room not ready and you're mad? Have a beer act. Events pays the bills, not guest. We could sell every room every night and still not hold a candle to event revenue. 40K weddings, 85K hospital party, 65K Shriners Event Act. When guests say we will close because their room money is what helps keep the lights on, we have a chuckle behind their back. Bedbugs. Larger hotels have better insurance to compensate for bedbugs. We won't say their name, but we will hand you over to Human Resources, who files a claim and start a compensation package. As for when it happens, it can cost us between $2,500 and $5K to clear a room of them, and we treat the rooms on each side of the infected. Also, all hotels get them, but if a wealthy person gets them, they will spend tons of money to fix the issue, whereas small cheap hotels get people who just can't afford the treatment. The hotel has a nervous system. The fire panel is wires that run through the whole hotel telling us of any water, fire or tampering to the hotel's safety. How do I know you are smoking in your room? I didn't walk by, the fire panel told me. How did I know you tried to remove the detector, the fire panel, and why are you using steam to cover up smoke? The correct way would be a thick plastic closed hair cover, but no promises. But the panel know much, and those housekeeper are also looking for evidence of smoke window seal. Smokers. Drugs. We don't care about high-end drugs. I have had Elias drop a small bag of cocaine and I returned it to him in the bathroom. It's not worth our time to confront them or get police involved unless it's a full-on drug party that's out of control. Before we go to the next story, make sure to subscribe to the channel and leave a comment saying you subscribed, and we will do our best to make sure to reply to your comment. Story 8. I worked in room service at a very chic hotel in Miami. One guest requested that a specific waitresses, not a room service worker, always deliver him food. Not exactly sure what went on in there, but he tipped her with a big bag of weed each time, which she would promptly bring back to share with the room service staff. Calvin Klein brought his own food because he was on a special diet. He was an asshole about it too. I can confirm that the concierge will get you whatever you want: women, drugs, Cuban cigars, guest listed at clubs. On the opposite end of the spectrum, I worked at a nice but older resort one step above a cheap motel. A local hooker stole all the furniture from one of our rooms. It was old crappy wicker furniture. We had a local couple, who were staying with us, to avoid being served for a lawsuit. We weren't allowed to say that they were staying there. The police eventually showed up for them. There were several times when guests would come to the front desk claiming the maids had stolen something from their room. They would be irate, demanding we call the police. Every single time they found the item either in their luggage or car, or their travel companions had moved/packed the item. One gentleman claimed that he forgot his very expensive camera in his room. My manager pulled up video that showed him packing up his car, placing the camera on top of the car and driving off without realizing it. Story 9. I used to work as a freelance bartender and hotels were always the worst run situation I would end up in. Here are some examples from a really nice looking hotel in an old monastery. The beer lines had never been clean, like literally never. I asked where the equipment was to do it and no one could tell me. I eventually found it dusty in a closet in the cellar. The breakfast buffet leftovers were usually reheated and given to the staff, but sometimes became the following day's breakfast buffet. The chefs were just shit-faced pretty much every day. The worst I saw though was the wine put out on tables at a wedding. They married them up, recapped them, and put them back in the cellar. Not even the same wine getting poured into bottles. Guests had drank straight from them and everyone had seen, and no one had an issue with this. In my country this is actually illegal, it's called diverting waste. This was the final straw for me in this particular venue. I told the manager that I didn't give a shit what he did after my time there ended, but there was no fucking way I was letting that wine be resold. He tried to tell me that it was perfectly legal. I cut him off and told him that it wasn't. It doesn't matter either way, it's disgusting and immoral, and if I find a single bottle of that wine in the stores I'm walking out. Luckily when you're freelance bartending somewhere you're there because they desperately need you, so threatening to leave works really well. Story 10. The bellman or night valets will happily set you up with an escort. Hotel bartenders and servers routinely work 10+ hours without a break. If your behavior, fighting for example, on property requires calling the police, you will just be escorted back to your room if you are there with your family. If you're alone, you're at a minimum being kicked out of the hotel and probably arrested. Hotel management is aggressively incompetent. If you're terrible at everything and want a mediocre salary with long hours and no responsibility, but you can wear a blazer, this is the job for you. Conventions are hotbeds of adultery. The big hotel chains will nickel and dime you to death, and not always legally. Some of them have been sued for it, lost, and continue to do it anyway. Everyone on staff hates the majority of the guests. Labor and wage violations are rampant. Story 11. Just recently quit my job at a very old hotel that's rated 4 stars and extremely popular. For an entire summer, we weren't given sponges and had to scrub toilets, tubs, etc. with nothing but our gloves, hands and Tilex. Some housekeepers bought their own sponges, but there was no way I was going to spend money when the hotel makes millions every year. When we finally got sponges, we would use the same one for every sink, toilet, and tub/shower. There was mold growing behind the wallpaper in some of the bathrooms, especially the poolside rooms. We prioritized speed over cleanliness every time. If pillowcases didn't look/used, we were taught to not replace them. It just has to look clean, it doesn't have to actually be clean. Story 12. I mostly have worked at 4-star hotels. Not super fancy, but still nice. Have seen a dude with bad Crohn's getting drunk and shitting all over his bedroom, a swingers convention, women getting roofied at Memorial Day parties, rich attorneys having to go to the hospital because they had too much drugs and alcohol, prostitutes galore, drunk dudes with their faces covered in blood trying to find their way back to their hotels. Nashville hotels, man. So many other stories. Story 13. Don't think these are much a secret, but I worked valet at a very nice hotel. I had to give some very drunk people their car. I'm talking having trouble standing. Management said it's their property and we have to give them their vehicle. I saw it mentioned but a ton of porn was shot. Guys unload a ton of camera gear, get the waterfront penthouse. A couple down-up girls come and leave, then everyone checks out. No one stays the night even though the room is paid for, and I always found that strange, but I guess I get it. Celebrities always had aliases, but we knew they were coming. The staff at the high-end restaurants on the property were drunks and loved cocaine, but I think that's just a lot of it industry. I thought nicer restaurants might pay better and have passionate people, but nah, they just party all day and charge a fuck ton for food and drinks. Story 14. Oh, the stories. Basically, rich folks are just as much of a Jerry Springer show as everyone else. I've worked in hotels so fancy we weren't even allowed to speak or make eye contact with guests. Very private and very, very rich. The women are always snotty bitches, miserable because their hubbies sleep with anything that's young and has a pulse. The wives drink a lot and love their pills. The children are usually lonely and either very rude or so sad you want to take them home with you. Men with that kind of money make me gag. They just expect you to sleep with them because they're rich. They don't even try to hide it. Many of the single rich females are just as nasty. Like they're trying to keep up with the men to see who can be more of a dog. Rich people sleep around a lot, do a lot of drugs, and do a lot of partying. Partner swapping seems to be a big thing too. The kicker for me was this ultra-rich private resort was basically all rich conservatives. LMFAO. Well, that's it for this video. If you have any hotel stories, I would love to hear them. Thanks for watching.